The alarms started before I even understood what was happening. Red light poured through the corridor, and the floor shook under my boots as something massive slammed into a wall 3 decks below me. I froze, with a crate of spare parts still in my hands, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it over the sirens. My name is Daniel Whitmore, and I was not built for moments like this. I count inventory. I file requisition forms. I had never once in my career expected to hear a voice over the ship's speakers screaming that containment had failed and that everyone should seal themselves into the nearest safe room immediately. I did not make it to a safe room. The corridor lights flickered, then died, then came back in a dim emergency glow. I heard something moving toward me, footsteps too heavy and too fast to belong to any person. I pressed myself against the wall between 2 storage crates, praying the shadows would be enough to hide me. They were not. It rounded the corner, and I saw it fully for the first time. It stood taller than any person I had ever met, its body covered in dark plating that shimmered faintly under the emergency lights, its eyes catching the glow like small lanterns. My breath caught in my throat. I had heard rumors about what the research division kept locked away on this ship. Whispers passed between crew members who were never supposed to know. I never believed them. I believed them now. I expected it to end quickly. I closed my eyes and waited. Nothing happened. When I opened my eyes again, the creature had stopped less than 2 meters away from me. Its head tilted, studying me the way you might study something unexpected and strange. I did not move. I barely breathed. Every instinct told me that any sudden motion would be the last thing I ever did. Then it lowered itself, folding its massive frame down until we were almost level, its strange lantern eyes fixed on mine. A low sound came from deep in its chest, something between a growl and a question. I had no idea what it wanted. I had no idea what to do. So I did the only thing that felt natural in that moment. I held very still and spoke softly, the way you might speak to a frightened animal. It worked, or at least, it did not make things worse. The creature settled lower, and something in its posture shifted from tension to something closer to calm. I heard boots pounding down the corridor behind it, security teams responding to the alarms, and the creature's head snapped up instantly, placing itself directly between me and the sound. The team rounded the corner and stopped dead when they saw the creature standing guard in front of me. Their weapons rose. I saw the fear on their faces, the same fear I had felt only moments earlier. "Please do not shoot," I called out, my voice shaking. "It has not hurt me." The lead officer, a woman named Claire Bennett, kept her weapon steady but did not fire. "Step away from it," she ordered. I could not step away. The moment I tried to shift even slightly, the creature let out a sound that made the entire team freeze, a warning clear enough that no translation was needed. It was not going to let me move toward them, and it was certainly not going to let them move toward me. We stood like that for what felt like an eternity, though the ship's logs later showed it was only 90 seconds. 90 seconds of a standoff that could have ended everything. Then Claire, to her credit, lowered her weapon slightly and asked the question that would define everything that followed. "What is your relationship to that thing?" she asked me. "I do not have one," I told her honestly. "I have never seen it before in my life." The captain arrived not long after, a calm and steady woman named Margaret Ellery, who had commanded the vessel for over a decade. She took one look at the situation, the creature standing protectively in front of a terrified supply officer, and made a decision that surprised everyone in that corridor. "Lower your weapons," she said. "All of you. Let us see what happens." The team obeyed, though reluctantly. The creature's posture eased slightly once the weapons were down, though it never once took its attention off the people around us. Margaret stepped forward slowly, her hands visible and open. "We are not here to hurt you," she said to the creature, her voice steady despite the obvious danger. "We only want to understand." The creature watched her carefully, then looked back at me, as if checking my reaction before deciding how to respond. I nodded slightly, and something about that small gesture seemed to matter to it. It settled further, no longer coiled and ready to strike, though still clearly alert. Over the following hours, we learned the truth in fragments, pieced together from data files, and a very shaken research team, who had finally been located, hiding in a sealed lab, 3 decks away. The creature had been created by a private research group, operating outside any official oversight, grown over several years from genetic material recovered from a distant, abandoned world. The scientists had intended to shape it into an obedient guardian, something that would follow commands without question. 6 years of conditioning had not produced anything they wanted. It had simply waited, patient and unyielding, until the right moment came to break free. What none of them expected was what happened next. The species it had been created from was never meant to serve a chain of command. It was built to bond, deeply and completely, with a single individual, choosing that person on its own terms, and defending them without limit. The scientists had tried everything to force that bond toward themselves. They had failed every single time. And then, in the chaos of its escape, it had found me. I still do not fully understand why. Perhaps it was because I did not run when so many others had. Perhaps it was simple chance, being the first calm presence it encountered in the middle of the turmoil. Whatever the reason, the bond had already formed, and nothing the research team said or did could undo it. They wanted it back immediately. A man named Gerald Ashworth, who introduced himself as the lead of the research program, arrived within the hour, furious and desperate in equal measure. He explained, with a kind of clinical detachment that made my skin crawl, how much time and resource had gone into the project, how important it was that the creature be returned to controlled conditions before it caused any further disruption. Margaret listened to all of it, with patience I admired. Then she asked a simple question that Gerald could not answer. If your creature was so well controlled, she said, then why did it take down 4 members of your own security staff to escape? And why has it not harmed a single person on my ship since it found this man? Gerald had no answer for that. He tried threats next, mentioning legal consequences and the authority of his organization, but Margaret was unmoved. She had already seen enough to make her decision, and no amount of pressure was going to change it. Over the following days, life on the ship adjusted around this new and unexpected arrangement. The creature, which I eventually began calling Ashen, for the pale gray markings along its back, stayed close to me at all times. It slept near my quarters. It waited outside when I worked. It watched over me with a quiet, constant attention that should have felt suffocating, but instead felt strangely comforting. Ashen was careful with everyone else too, once it understood they meant no harm. Children from a family we had taken aboard during an earlier evacuation would sometimes pass by, and Ashen would simply watch them with something like curiosity, never once showing any sign of aggression unless it sensed a real threat. It seemed to understand the difference between danger and simple presence, something far more intelligent than anyone had given it credit for. Gerald did not give up easily. He returned twice more, each time with a different argument, a different threat, a different plea. Each time, Margaret refused him, and each time, Ashen made its own feelings known, simply by staying exactly where it was, calm but unmoving, a silent answer that needed no words. On the last occasion, Gerald asked me directly why I would not simply let them take the creature back for its own safety, insisting that it belonged in a controlled environment where it could not hurt anyone by accident. I looked at Ashen, who was resting quietly nearby, its lantern eyes half closed but still watching everything around us. It had never once threatened me. It had placed itself between me and every danger since the moment it found me, asking for nothing in return except the simple right to stay close. It is not dangerous because it is uncontrolled, I told Gerald. It is dangerous to anyone who threatens the one thing it has chosen to protect. That is not something you built into it. That is something it chose on its own. Gerald left the ship soon after, and I never saw him again. The research organization eventually stopped sending representatives altogether, perhaps realizing that no argument was going to work, or perhaps simply moving on to other projects and leaving this one behind. Life settled into something calmer after that. I went back to my work managing supplies and inventory, though now I did it with a very large and very attentive companion resting nearby, watching the corridors with quiet patience. The rest of the crew grew used to Ashen's presence over time, learning to trust the same instinct that had told me, in that very first terrifying moment, that this creature meant me no harm. I still think often about that night, about the alarms and the fear, and the impossible moment when something powerful enough to end my life instead chose to protect it. I do not know why Ashen chose me over anyone else on that ship, and I suspect I may never fully understand it. What I do know is that trust, once given freely and without condition, is not something easily taken away. Ashen never went back to the people who made it. It stayed with me, exactly where it wanted to be, and in the strange quiet of the nights that followed, I found myself grateful beyond words that on the one night everything went wrong, something had decided that I was worth staying for.